So, where did this idea that sex is love come from? What happened in my childhood that made me grow up thinking that? So I've been thinking about it, and I've come up with a few answers. I watched my mother date around as I was very young. Probably, let's see, I moved in with my aunt and uncle when I was 9 because there was a big incident when I was around 8. But they took me. When I say my aunt and uncle, that's my dad's side of the family. But yeah, until then, I guess I just watched a single mom, be unstable with her dating life. And then I think about, I'm like, she obviously had that belief too. So where did she get that belief? Well, her mother, my nanny, abandoned her basically and left my mother to be raised by her father. He was a good guy. He was a real stickler. He was like in the Navy and stuff like that. So like my mom grew up a tomboy because her father raised her. I wish I would have asked my mom. My mom died in 2009, so I didn't even have the awareness to ask her the questions that I'm asking now, but it would be nice to pick her mind. Yeah, if you still have your mom around, or dad, or anyone, you ask them questions, just write some stuff down, and you'll be amazed with what you learn, because after my mom died, her husband did actually, because I stayed here at the house for 2 weeks after she passed away, because I used to live in South Carolina, to help him clean up the house and stuff. And I'll never forget, we sat on the couch one evening and he just told me a whole bunch of things about my mom I'd never known. Like, she had been abused a lot in her life. She didn't believe in God. Isn't that crazy that and I was like, why didn't she tell us? And he said, because she didn't want it to influence how you felt. But yeah, so that was the first reason to watch mom date around from a young age. The second reason is a little bit more personal, but this is just the truth. So that's what I enjoy the truth. I've gotten in trouble with my mouth, or not in trouble, but I've lost relationships and stuff like that. My whole life, my sense of honesty, or whatever you want to call it, has always been, not always, but most of the times it's an issue. So I love being able to just spill it on here. I'm pretty sure that I was SA'd by a man when I was living with my mother at a young age, probably around 5, 6. We lived in a duplex, we rented it, and he stayed with us for a while. Mom let him stay because I remember he was sleeping on the couch. And the only other memory I have of him is when my mom kicked him out because they were arguing. And I just remember her saying something about she paid the phone bill or the cable bill, and he had been on like phone sex lines or stuff like that, or watching dirty stuff, something to that effect. And she's just like, you gotta go. I can't believe you were doing that when my girl's here, and da-da-da-da. That's what she said. That's what I remember. So as I've gotten older, I'm just like, that's a really awkward thing to remember as a little girl. And I never forgot his name either. It was Paul. So yeah, I'm about 99% sure that something happened. He did something that he wasn't supposed to do to my young body, and it stuck with me, even though I can't remember it. So that's another reason why I probably think sex is love, is because I experienced that at an unusually young age. Well, a lot of kids are, I say, but I know there's a lot that aren't. So, but that'll do something to a kid's psyche. Because I remember, like, I wasn't self-pleasuring, but I remember, like, laying down on the floor sometimes with my hand like this. I was going to take a nap, and my nanny was like, this is after Paul. My nanny was like, move your hand. I didn't even know what I was doing. Like, that's what it does. It's like, yeah, it's messed up, and that's probably one of the reasons. So, yeah, you need to be careful if you have, like, survived SA, because you'll go right back into it thinking it's safe, because that's what your brain goes for. What's safe and what's familiar. That's what your brain thinks. But it's the opposite of that. Like, I went right back into having sex. I lost my virginity when I was 12 years old. By choice. So I remember that. But that's another reason. And looking back, I see why it happened like it did, because I thought sex was love. Yeah. The other thing I wrote down was societal norms. What do I mean by that? The whole patriarchy. How women are just objects. It's all over TV. You gotta do this, you gotta do that. Like, they make us fear aging. They make us fear our face. Like, there's nothing ugly about a woman becoming mature, unless you are a man who who's like benefiting from an immature woman. Yeah. So, and the whole marriage thing, it's like, oh, you gotta settle down and get married, and somebody's gotta take care of you, you gotta have babies and all this. Like, we are conditioned to think that is what we're supposed to do. And it's not. And the last thing I wrote down was, I wrote that kind of out of order, but I saw my mom and her husband. This was probably when I was around 7 or 8, because I had been living with my, this is before I lived with my aunt and uncle. This is like this is where my whole life just took a 180. And I still to this day can't fully explain it, but I'm starting to get there. I'm understanding it. I had a little sister. It was me, my mom, and my sister for most of our lives. But when mom got married to Eddie, it was the 4 of us. That was different. That definitely affected me. I felt jealous. I felt like he took our mom away. But she married him still, and whatever with that. But me and Maddie were sleeping one night, and we had bunk beds, but I think I was on the top, yeah. And I just heard this noise in the living room. And so I get up to go in there, and it's my mom and him in the floor having sex. But for my young brain, I was probably, 7. Yeah, somewhere in there. Had to be. All I saw was mom hollering and him on top of her. So I was going in, and I was like, get off my mom, And then they were like, oh no. And mom was like, get out of here, And I just remember going back in the bedroom, getting into the bottom bunk with my sister, because she was starting to get up. And I was like, no, don't do that. And it was traumatizing. I went back to sleep with my sister. And then the next day, my mom tried to have the birds and the bees talk with me. I had no idea what she was talking about. No idea. But yeah, from that point on, my childhood it did a 180. I went from like a straight A student, doing everything I was supposed to, listening, to a little rebel, like a straight up rebel. Yeah. So those are just some of the ways that I think I made sex equal love in my young brain.